until, like you said, we have proof that there's something that, you know, we have in our hands, physical or scientific proof, then that's it.
Yeah, it doesn't mean you shouldn't keep looking, though. That's for sure.
But yeah, I'm with you. I personally believe, I mean, just the odds now, you know, we're seeing so many exoplanets out there, with a lot of them in, again, another presumptuous thing. I believe that it's, you know, has to be in that Goldilocks zone, but just the odds alone, you know, like with the Drake equation, it's to me inconceivable that we are alone. Just like, you know, Galileo and Copernicus's time, everybody thinking at the time that the center of the universe was the Earth.
Right. Well, we do have, humans definitely have a tendency to, you know, make themselves the center of their own universes, you know, so, you know, I mean, you just think of, you know, the average person's daily waking life, you know, they think that all the problems, the little problems that are around them is their world, you know, and
that's what
couldn't be
ego is
further
all
from the
about, right?
truth.
Individuals and egos, that's what it's all about.
Yeah. And
you.
so we all have that, and it's you know, we all think that we're ourselves and that we're somehow separate from everything else, and that, you know, whether they're good things or bad things or other things out there, we don't think of ourselves in terms of living in a quantum universe, you know. We don't think about that. We don't, you know, I'm sitting down on a chair. I don't think that I'm floating above the chair. I think I'm actually touching it. I'm not, though. I'm floating above it.
Yeah,
and
all
the
the
pressure, the
atoms.
repelling
Yeah.
of these atoms. So it's just, you know, and scientists prove again and again that there is so much that we can't see. Okay, our eyes are just not attuned for it, or none of our senses are, you know, and so we only get, as far as a human being goes, we only get this tiny sliver of reality, and then we kind of color it in with our moods, attitudes, hormones, whatever, you know, and that becomes our daily world, you know, when in fact we're flying through space at unbelievable speeds on this little blue dot, you know, and you know, we live in a living universe. So that's it helps to try to keep an open mind. I think astronomy helps you know, develop that in people, you know, and so, you know, well, as I said earlier, I'm a skeptic of visitation and UFOs and this kind of thing. It doesn't mean that personally I don't believe that there's not life all over the place. I do. I sure do. So you go to the Jet Propulsion Laboratory and you talk to the scientists there and you ask them, well, what are we doing these days? Well, we're looking for life. That's what we're doing. That's bottom line what they're doing. And we're spending billions of dollars doing it. And so
it's the most basic fundamental need for us because humans don't want to be alone. We are social people.
Right.
Our world and beyond. Space, in partnership with the European Space Agency.
I have not seen one example which really could convince me, though I like to read these stories like everybody else, yeah, which could really convince me that life from somewhere else in the universe has contacted us.
I think a sizable proportion of the population believe that we've already been visited by aliens, and the government are aware of this, and for some reason, some bizarre reason, they're not revealing this.
Actually, it's not stupid to think that there's life somewhere else, in whatever form. I'm not glued to the idea that human beings are unique, that the Earth is unique in such a huge universe.
It's a serious subject to CNES, the French space agency. Since 1977, all unidentified aerospace phenomena sighted from France are investigated in Toulouse by GEPON, the department which studies these reports.
The strength of GEPON, I think, is to have a scientific methodology to call on experts in various different fields who are interested in these phenomena.
In Sheffield, in the north of England, David Clarke is a journalism professor. He investigates reports of UFO sightings in depth. The reports were declassified by the UK Ministry of Defence in 2005.
Got everything in there from sort of just your basic lights in the sky and shapes in the sky, right down to people who believe that they've been in telepathic contact with aliens or been abducted by aliens. Most of the reports were simply logged and filed away. Very, very few investigated in any depth.
In contrast to the French, the British authorities seem to have taken UFOs a bit lightly, even when there were intriguing, credible cases like the 1994 sighting of a mysterious glowing object very close up. The man's car was immobilized and he suffered skin burns.
This is one of the more interesting reports. As you can see, this is the entire report in the Royal Air Force Archives. 2 pieces of paper.
David Clarke's study of the British UFO archives has led him to be sceptical about UFOs.
90 to 95% of the reports that have been received by official bodies can be explained by the whole range of the usual things: aircraft, balloons, fireballs burning up in the atmosphere, space junk, birds, that kind of thing.
But recently, there has been a wave of UFO sightings across Europe. The abundance of proof has, however, helped to identify them as, for example, little balloons released by the Asian community during celebrations.
Pilots often report seeing red things, cloudy red shapes, or not cloudy at all, cylindrical or saucer-shaped. Scientists who have studied these reports now tell us that this can be caused by storms, by what we call red sprites, which could be seen at high altitudes.
These explanations are unlikely to convince either side of the debate, however, because both UFO believers and disbelievers are entrenched in their positions.
One night in October 1996, there was a group of police officers looking out over the North Sea, and they could see these revolving coloured lights in the sky, and they were convinced it was a UFO. There was a call then to the Royal Air Force Air Defence. Lo and behold, something on radar directly over Boston in Lincolnshire, where the police were. That looks like something impressive. You've got sightings by police, you've got things on radar. That light in the sky was still visible as dawn broke, when it vanished into the background of the sky with all the other stars, and that's what it was, a bright star or a planet. Royal Greenwich Observatory, when they got the video, straight away said, Planet Venus. Blip on radar was the tall spire of a church in Boston in Lincolnshire that creates a permanent echo. So that, to me, that incident sums up UFOs. You know, because when you've got people who think there's something odd in the sky that can't be explained, suddenly lots of other people start looking up in the sky, seeing things that they would otherwise have ignored, and everything then is like fitted together as evidence that we're being visited by aliens.
Since 1977, GEPON has collected more than 2,200 reports, which they have investigated in partnership with the civil and military authorities. 23% of all events were then classified as unexplained, but only a dozen cases are classified as completely inexplicable.
There's lots of charlatans involved in the subject of ufology, people who are out to make a lot of money by telling the public what they think the public want to hear, i.e. they've been visited by aliens and there's a huge cover-up. This has a knock-on effect in terms of, for example, aircrew are reluctant to report things that they've seen because they're worried about the effects it will have on their career if it becomes known that this is the pilot who sees flying saucers. Who wants to fly with someone who's got that reputation? Which is a shame, because it's quite clear that pilots are the people who are likely to see these kinds of things. Therefore, they should be reporting not to the military, they should be reporting to scientists.
This is a famous case which has been widely reported in the press. In 1994, on an Air France flight between Nice and London, the pilot, the co-pilot and the steward, all three of them saw an object. Well, was it an object? An unidentified space phenomenon on their left, so they contacted the radar controller on the ground, and the radar people did actually see a trace which would cross the plane's trajectory. Japon did quite an in-depth report with the help of all sorts of experts, and this report concluded that there was no explanation for the sighting, so it was classified as a truly unexplained phenomenon.
A été classé par définition par le GEPAN en phénomène inexpliqué.
If we believe in extraterrestrial visitors, that means a superior life form exists somewhere. At the University of Leiden in Holland, Pascal Ehrenfreund is a very well-known astrobiologist. She regularly collaborates with the European Space Agency and with NASA.
This is the ground control or the ground control center, one experiment which is on. There are only a few regions, I think, in the universe where you can really form planets, rocky planets like the Earth, which could harbor life. The Earth is a very special place in our solar system. Additionally, not only are we in a great habitable zone in our only solar system, we are also in a great habitable zone in our galaxy. On Earth, you had very specific events which were driving the evolution in the direction of forming our intelligent humans. And it is very difficult to understand and to reconstruct if that could actually happen on other planets in exactly the same way.
All life as we know it starts with carbon. According to those who claim to have seen them, extraterrestrials are little green men with eyes and ears which logically must be made of carbon.
Life is based on carbon chemistry on the Earth, and we do think that carbon is a very, very special molecule. It can form these complex three-dimensional structures, and it is very robust, and it is just a key molecule for life. So you could imagine that life is based on other elements as well, and that has been discussed a lot in the literature and by scientists. But it is really the question, can we actually detect it? And will we ever know?
It's obviously a tricky subject. Many questions remain unanswered, and the answers we do have don't satisfy everyone. What is reality for some remains just a fairy tale to others.
We want to know that we aren't alone, because it's quite lonely in the universe when there's only us, and we're desperate to find evidence of something out there, a greater sort of intelligence, something that a civilization that's been around for much longer than we have, that's got over all those things that we're trouble with, you know, nuclear weapons, warfare, etc., almost godlike, no different really from what people believed in the Middle Ages about angels and demons and God. You know, that's what it is, and I think people like to feel that comfort that there's something out there that's keeping an eye on us, basically.
Not really being the lonely planet. The idea is at once seductive and worrying. Perhaps one day we'll know the truth.
Well, hello, everybody. This is Scott Roberts here with our regular hosts here with Jerry Hubbell and Tyler Bowman, and our special guest, Michael Klosterman. Michael is an investigator for the Mutual UFO Network, and he's coming in from Virginia. I guess you handled the entire state of Virginia, is that right? Or
Yeah, I'm the chief investigator for Virginia.
All right. Now, you're also an amateur astronomer. You've been involved in amateur astronomy for a while, or what's your experience like?
Yeah, since I would say about 8 years old, I got my first telescope. So, started at an early age, always fascinated with space. I had a dream, like a lot of kids, wanting to be an astronaut.
That's cool.
So always surrounding myself with science and space.
Right, right. And tell us a little bit about your interest in unidentified flying objects, or UAPs as they call them now. Is this something that was relatively recent in your life, or is this something that goes way back?
So actually, it's both of those. So I was hesitant. I had an experience as a child that will always be in my mind. I don't know what it was, but it really kind of was an image that burned into my mind. I never reported it. I was in the military. I was an intelligence officer for 21 years, and like a lot of people, kind of feared the backlash, the ridicule, the jokes. So I didn't join MUFON or didn't involve myself in ufology at all until after I retired. And I decided, just after watching, I think it was Hangar One, which actually is one of the not the best shows that showcase MUFON, but it was an episode of that where I saw MUFON, and I thought, well, hey, maybe now is the time to submit my report, and I did. And then in the intervening weeks of that investigation, the field investigator said, hey, sounds like you've got a great background. Have you ever thought about being a field investigator? So that was in 2018, and I became an investigator soon after that.
So what does MUFON look for in an investigator? What are there certain qualities? Is there a training thing that goes down, or how is that?
Well, first, obviously, we want people of good character. They do actually do a criminal background check because we're interacting with a lot of other people, and that we want to be safe, and we want the community to be safe. And then, as far as the background, we look for a wide variety of background. We look for people that we can augment their expertise into our own investigations, but we don't restrict that. Anybody is welcome if they have the desire to get the training, which there's several different methods. We have actually called MUFON University, which has a lot of modules for training, and including for field investigators. And it covers things as basic as the ethics. We have an ethical standard. The scientific method is right at the forefront. Learning how to interview witnesses, learning how to obtain evidence and protect that evidence with a chain of custody. All the other forensic aspects of evidence collection, photography. We learn how to apply geometry and trigonometry, using different measurements for trying to identify altitude of an object or the size, apparent size. All the way to even like psychology, because it's dealing with the human condition in these experiences. Somebody observed something and it affected them enough to want to report something.
Sure.
So, we value all expertise, but we don't, that's not what we just look for. We accept anybody that's interested in doing that and takes the exam and passes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, you and I were talking earlier before we started the program, and I'd mentioned that I had experience or went on record as being a UFO skeptic, and had talked about my my one and only show, or where I was on television about this, was with a guy named Stanley, and the show was called Stanley Tonight. It was broadcast out of a local channel in San Diego, and you helped me remember Stanton Friedman. He was there. He's a well-known investigator of UFOs, and And then my experience was with the Unarian Society, and my whole argument with them is that they wanted to claim that they were scientists, and while they were there, arriving with a lot of fanfare, they were singing songs. They were, it seemed to have all the elements of a kind of religious type of elements, And I kept being asked, don't I believe? Don't I believe? And I said, look, it's not about whether I believe or not. I said, belief falls into the category of faith. Okay. And if you have faith and you have an organization, then you have a religion. And I said, you're not scientists. You have a religion. I said, that's fine. That's fine. But they wanted to make claims that they were doing science, which I really couldn't see any evidence of in my limited capacity. Now, before I went on the show, I have friends at SETI Institute, and I talked to some of them, and so they said, well, you can't win this argument, but but it's good to get the dialogue going, and they said, be respectful. And I'm respectful. I'm not going to trash somebody or degrade them or anything, because it doesn't happen to be, fall into what I'm not skeptical about. Okay. But I'm skeptical about a lot of things. So, and we talked about reasons why maybe you necessarily should be, because as an amateur astronomer, and someone interested in science, we know that we only see a very narrow slice of reality. We can't see into the far infrared, we can't see into the ultraviolet, we can't hear things. It's a very, very narrow slice, from our own senses.
Right. We're like tuned for a specific region of the spectrum.
Exactly. Right. So we don't see all reality, and we talked about some of the psychology that of people as they go along their daily lives. They think that all their small problems, the things going on around them, the thing they heard on the news or whatever, they think that's the world. They think that that's their universe. So when in fact they're flying on this. I always call it the pale blue dot, but I like to call it that because it helps to put things in perspective a little bit. We're flying through space at unbelievable speeds. We're on our own spacecraft, okay, called Earth. And very few people even start to wake up to that, except for a lot of amateur astronomers. They start to think in those terms, and they start to look up more than looking down. And so, I'm going to turn this over to you and to Jerry, but thanks for coming on our program, Mike.
No problem. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah.
So Mike, I appreciate you coming on to talk about this, because I'm very much interested in how your studies and how your work with MUFON relates to astronomy, and how you use astronomy directly in your investigations. And I know there's a lot. We were talking earlier. There's a lot of sightings that are at night, and if it's clear, then you're definitely going to see stars, and you're not maybe understand what's going on. But astronomers spend a lot of time underneath the night sky, and they're familiar with what celestial objects look like and what they should look like. So that's experience. Your experience brings that to the picture, I think. What kind of, so explain a little bit more about that, how you bring that to the investigation. Sure. Also, how many other astronomers do you think are in MUFON and doing this level of, or have this level of knowledge and skill to bring to the investigation?
Yeah, that's a great question. So first, the first question, as far as how astronomy relates, it actually is, I would put it in two categories. One is the actual celestial events or observations, as you said. The other is instrumentation that we're familiar with, which the techniques, the scientific methodology, and the actual equipment actually that can lend themselves to kind of open up that aperture a little bit of the spectrum that, like Scott said, that we can't see ourselves. So there's some crossover in the techniques and the equipment as well as the subject. So From the subject area, it helps to train our field investigators up front to understand the basics of astronomy, where they can actually look, because no one is going to be an expert in every field that relates to ufology. So the key is, arm them with experts in the field or places that they can look that can help them. There's plenty of apps. There's an app for everything. And some of them are very good for looking at the night sky on a particular day and time and location and see if that may match the description. It might be a starting point. It may not be an exact match, but you start to build up a story about what are all the potential observables. What are all the characteristics that could account for that? And so we look at all these different competing hypotheses to try to account for what was actually observed or witnessed. And yes, a lot of them end up being astronomical at nighttime, but even daytime sightings of Venus, do happen where people have really good eyesight and know where to look, or don't know where to look when they find something. An astronomical app or an astronomer certainly comes in handy.
It seems to me also that in terms of the technology that's used, not only for doing the forensics investigation, but also for the observers, what they use, you really need to understand is, well, not eyeball reports or narrative reports, but with if they have photographs, you need to understand how those cameras work and what they actually used in that specific report, right? To understand, what is it intrinsic to the camera system? What could cause this effect on the image, that type of stuff. It seems like you get into very high detail with that.
We do. We actually have a form that if it's a photographic case, we give that to the witness, have them fill out the camera make and model. A lot of times you can get that off of the EXIF data that cameras have. We're trained in, how to do some forensics on that's just the basics, but there's a lot more to it to determine, artifacts if it's been manipulated. But just the basics we can determine, or we can compare that with what the witness says. And they fill out this form, and a lot is determined based on the actual physical makeup of the lens or the camera, the system as a whole.
Right.
So that's.
I think also you need to understand, since it's so easy today to create digital data that looks real, right? That you need to really understand the psychological, and the interview part really becomes that much more important, it seems to me.
Yeah, reading body language is absolutely critical. You can get a lot of clues. I actually attended a boot camp for MUFON that was in Arizona. Part of it was actually in the field in the desert, where we learned a lot of techniques that are used by the FBI. In fact, the instructors, two of them were police officers from Mesa, Arizona. We had a former FBI agent as an instructor. We had all these specific trainers on different aspects of forensics, and we learned about body language and psychology, and how, when you interview somebody, what to look for to determine, are they hiding something? Is it something they're hiding because of fear? Is it something they're hiding because they are maybe wanting to believe something more than what really happened? And then also outright hoaxes. We do get outright hoaxes, and that's absolutely vital to pin that down right away, so that our reputation remains as a scientific organization, not based on conjecture.
So that's good that you're getting to. So I'm really interested in the technical side of this. What your investigative procedures are like, what kind of information you gather. But overall, it's important to maintain that scientific view of things, and because it's really an extraordinary claim. You really need to dig as deeply into the details as you can of every report. And so one of the things you talked about is that, sometimes you don't have enough information to make a conclusion one way or the other.
Right.
So it's
actually, that's a good segue, because I want to move beyond just the typical human to human interaction with working with a witness and move into an area that I am really working hard towards with Virginia MUFON to move us into more technology. Because as you said, us humans have a very narrow view of the entire electromagnetic spectrum. And you can tell a lot about something by its characteristics. This sort of was happened by way of a series of cases that I had in southwestern Virginia, in particular around Buena Vista. If you know the area, it's sort of perched in the I-81 corridor there, between the Blue Ridge Mountains and the rest of the Appalachian Mountains there. And I had a series of cases of people reporting what they call orbs. These lights, these spherical lights in the sky, sometimes very close to them. And I did get video of some of those. And while some of them can be explained by either drones or other aircraft, there was some pretty phenomenal video footage that we were able to deconstruct and do some forensic work on that is not very easily explained. So that led me, this was from the witnesses video. I decided, this happened right before the pandemic, unfortunately. I wanted to build a suite of equipment to apply some of my astronomical skills, because if it is light, if it is something that is self-luminous, it's not reflecting, perhaps it's something we could collect data, just like in astronomy. We collect photometric data of stars. So I was thinking, why not try to use a spectral filter? I contacted Tom Fields from Field
Tested Systems.
Yeah, and talked to him about it. I told him, hey, I'm an astronomer, but this is, I'm thinking of using this off topic. Don't call me crazy. He said, actually, you're not the first one who's thought of that. And I said, oh, interesting. So, I did obtain spectral grading and an adapter to use with my 35 millimeter camera. And I obtained a wide angle lens, and I was going to actually mount an expedition, set up, several cameras, get a full spectrum camera going, as well as, the camera with the spectral grading, and try to obtain data, because that's what it's about. I want firsthand data that we can analyze. And yes, it may not, we may not come to a magic conclusion. Hey, this is, this is a lightning, ball lightning, or this is something else. But it's moving in the right direction, as opposed to, like you said, your own personal beliefs. It's not about your beliefs. It's about trying to get facts and conclusions. And so that was all an attempt. Unfortunately, COVID got in the way, and we were not permitted to do any kind of in-person interactions.
Well, that's cool.
So that kind of got put on the back burner.
So that brings me to think about, what, as astronomers, what do we need to do? Is there anything special we need to do other than what we're already doing, looking at the sky, to maybe, shed some, like cliche, shed some light on the subject? It's like, what can we, is there anything different we can do or add to our skill set that would maybe help us understand better or see things that we don't see today, I guess?
Yeah, I would say basically having an open mind. Most astronomers, amateur astronomers, already do, as we mentioned. Applying, thinking outside the box, and that it's just not about just light either. There's other phenomenon associated with a lot of these that deal with electromagnetic radiation. So thinking, collecting what you can as an astronomer. And the other important thing is, as you know from astronomy, you want to get a baseline. It helps to understand what the norm is before you can identify anomaly. Let's try to establish a baseline and a norm before you discover anomalies. And that helps. So that's another aspect that astronomers
astronomers know the sky really well. They know what celestial objects look like in different conditions. They know, when you have high clouds, what things look like, when the seeing is not good, things twinkle and maybe look like they're flashing on and off. Maybe it just does all these different aspects of the observation change, depending on the weather and things like that. So astronomers are fairly well versed in that if they're experienced. But I don't know. Like I said before, I've seen things in the sky that I didn't understand immediately, but then after looking at it and thinking about it a little bit, and then it kind of reveals itself once you have experience and like you said, have an open mind to all possibilities, not just the possibility that it's just because it's unknown means it's X. That's not the case at all.
Right.
Unknown means unknown.
Right. And the other thing, this actually requires some hard work. It's a lot of people don't realize what goes into these cases. And you don't just go off of a report and make a conclusion. It does require digging. Actually, that's what I like. I mentioned it's sort of like a puzzle. I hate to have a problem that I can't solve. I just can't. I will stay awake at night trying to figure it out. And it's like that with these cases. And unfortunately, there are those that just, we've gotten as much data as we can. We've talked to the witness, we've done everything we can, and we still don't know what it is. That doesn't mean it's a spacecraft. It doesn't mean it's aliens. It just means we don't know what it is. And it could mean a lot of things. There are phenomena, like you said, that we do not understand fully.
Well, it could also mean you don't have enough information to just identify it as an aircraft.
Right. It could be
something simple like that,
Very much so. But we do take in everything that we can, like the meteorological conditions. We'll look at the date and time. We'll look at the weather. Was there a temperature inversion? What was the dew point? All sorts of things that go into trying to attack these problems from every possible angle.
Right. So Scott, how many people we have in the audience today? I guess we didn't acknowledge the audience yet.
Well, we can do that.
And what kind of questions do they have?
Just some general comments. People, Richard Grace has been coming on first almost every program, so we appreciate that, Richard. Bergman Scooter's with us. Mike Wiesner's with us from Smoky Sky, Arizona. Martin Eastburn in East Texas. We have Jeff Wise. He says, "Happy Taco Tuesday, everybody." Martin Eastburn says, "Jerry, Universe Today, June 13th, 2021, connection between chemistry and formation of planets. Up your alley with exoplanets." That's true.
And Mike's getting into exoplanets along with it. He's really heavy. He just had the AAVSO training on exoplanet observing. So that's one.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
He's going to be working
Also,
at the MSRO.
I also took a course at Stanford in exobiology and exochemistry, which is exactly what that comment was about. It's very interesting.
Very cool. Very cool. Cameron Gillis says it's very fascinating. Let's see. Harold Locke. He says it was reports to MUFON that verified to me that 20 years ago when I saw the orange orb in 2000. So let's see. He says he didn't make a report. This is Harold Locke. Didn't want men in black hanging around, but the event that a couple of separate people reported was over Miramar Naval Air Station. Those that saw the Miramar event reported that the Navy fighters were trying to engage those orange orbs. I was within 200 yards of my first encounter with the craft just above the roadway. Okay. Now, Harold has, we've touched on, UFOs a few times, and Harold has chimed in several times about this. So he's definitely someone that would be interesting to have more information from people who have had direct experiences. My mother and father were kind of disappointed in me that I was a UFO skeptic because they both had claimed to have seen UFOs. Okay. They wouldn't lie to me, but.
Now, when you talk about UFOs in this context, you're talking about they assume they were aliens.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, flying saucers. My mother saw something that looked that she described as a flying saucer. She saw as a child. It was near Plainview, Texas, hovering over the ground. Okay, she could see detail in it. So and my father, who was a Navy SEAL, made a comment that he saw a formation of them flying overhead. So again,
yeah, military witnesses are among probably the best in terms of, aviators as well as, people on the ground are some of the best observers that we have.
But they didn't know I was going to go on television as a skeptic. And so they were not happy about it. And of course, there's a lot of tongue-in-cheek things that we could say and describe about this. But you know what? The U.S. Navy and our government starting to release data. Okay, now this is changing a lot of my friends who are very conservative. Okay, we have private conversations about this stuff, and some people that I know that probably never would have entertained the idea are now starting to entertain the idea. Okay, so I'm curious, Michael. I mean, you've seen all this stuff that was released by the Navy. Was it last year?
Well, starting really in 2017 was sort of the earth-shattering report from the New York Times that sort of broke open this whole, Pentagon black ops sort of organization that had the first two videos released.
Right, and that was the FLIR video and the gimbal video.
Yeah,
that we've all seen.
Yeah, so my feeling is, I'm a retired Air Force, so I'm a little disappointed in my service not being as open. I do know from my own background that there is quite a bit of data that the Air Force has as well. And I don't think Blue Book, when it closed down, was the complete end. I just don't believe that the military may not know either. And I think that's the large thing, is the fact that the military should know what's in our airspace. And I think that's the concern that, DOD has, is what kind of image do they purvey to the community when, if they admit that they don't know. And, I have my own opinion. I think it's fine that there is a lot of things that we can't know everything. That's very egotistical. But I can see how they would be a little concerned about, going too far with that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I guess there's supposed to be some larger report that comes out this month. So I believe we're still kind of waiting for that to come out. But from your perspective, Michael, what do you make of all this stuff? I mean, do you think that is this just like the tip of the iceberg of what the military has, or is this something?
Yeah,
the military conversation about how many people trust our own government, and some people don't trust our own government as far as they can throw them. So others find. I find that something being released by the Department of Defense, U.S. Navy, like that, really, just extraordinary.
It is. You got to look at the motive, though, too. Why are they doing that? Is it to prepare us for additional releases? Is it maybe to generate disinformation also about something else? Because a lot of, the government is not going to release information about classified black programs. For obvious reasons, we just won't. And there will always be data that is kept closely held. I know that from personal experience. You don't give everything. You have, you should have a very thorough declassification process and review before anything like that happens. So there's without a doubt, they have additional information. Some of it may be going through, more reviews to re-release. Some of it probably will never be.
Right.
I do believe some of the the events that occurred with firsthand witnesses, with the greatest technology perhaps in the universe that we have at our disposal in the military, with the budget that the U.S. military has in terms of the Spy-1 radar and the destroyers off the east and west coast, the FLIR infrared, forward-looking infrared pods carried on F-18s. We're talking about state-of-the-art equipment, and they're recording things, activities that don't match with our frame of reference with our physics. So yes, I do believe there are some extraordinary things happening. There is evidence, there is actual physical proof and evidence that scientists are actually analyzing. What that actually means is what, just like the Navy, we don't know. But we have an obligation to continue to collect that information, because we don't know.
Right. The government's always got a specific reason to release information that's been held close for a long time. It seems to me there's a specific motive for doing this. We don't know what it is.
Exactly.
Why are they now coming up with this stuff and sharing it? Are they preparing us for, or they actually? My thinking is that they're preparing the enemy. They're trying to fool our adversaries in the world to think something that's not true, is what I'm thinking.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the deception and, psychological operations is a big part of the U.S. military. And like, the fact that we don't know what it is, you just said it, perhaps they do know. Maybe it is something that our adversary has, which is really scary. But if they say, well, we have this data, and as they slowly release it, maybe that's the message they're sending, that, hey, we got a handle on this, public. Don't worry. We're publicly saying we don't know, but we're investigating, and maybe that's part of it too.
Well, plus they're letting maybe they know it's a foreign technology, and they're letting the enemy know, or the adversaries know that we know what you're doing here. Yeah. We're keeping track of it.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So I do want to get back real quick on the subject of technology with this phenomenon here within MUFON. So I kind of alluded to the fact that I wanted to do that sort of boots on the ground expedition to Southwest Virginia there. It's about a 7-8 hour drive. I would stay like a weekend. Since then, I've partnered with several organizations that are popping up around the United States that are building very, very sophisticated suites of equipment, some using off-the-shelf astronomy equipment, some using typical surveillance equipment like the PTZ cameras that can move. And then the other area of my background in my job as a defense contractor is artificial intelligence. So we're using machine learning and artificial intelligence to help go through, these cameras will observe an anomaly. It takes a baseline, so it knows what a steady state. If there's airplanes in the sky, it can learn what an airplane is. And then it will alert people as to things that don't fit what it's already learned. And then use other data, other sensors like magnetometers and the spectral filter I mentioned, things like that, to try to explore more.
I think you were interested in the all-sky camera that we had at MSRO for that reason, right?
I still am, yeah. And there's two organizations in particular that I think are the most advanced. One's called SkyHub. You guys can all Google SkyHub and find they actually have the plans on how to 3D print your own enclosure and the equipment list. It uses a NVIDIA Jetson Nano computer for its AI ML stuff, and it uses I think it's Dahua PTZ camera. It's a gimbal mounted camera and an all sky camera. And then the other one is the UFO Data Acquisition Project, and I believe the actual tool is called the UFO Data Acquisition System. There's an electrical engineer called Ron Ulch, who actually comes from the defense world, who designed it, and it's a suite of equipment as well. And it's linked to algorithms like TensorFlow and some other ones that do object detection and characterization. So moving us, I'm trying to move MUFON into, at least here in Virginia, into the 21st century, and maybe partner with some of these organizations that are developing this, to try and bombard these phenomena with as much, equipment as we can to suck in every piece of the spectrum to analyze.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, that's great. So if someone wanted to get involved with reporting or investigating, what's the first steps, Mike?
Yeah, I would say definitely go to the MUFON website, www.mufon.com. And right at the very top, there's a button that says report a UFO. And there's also another button on how to become an investigator. Since all these revelations, I can tell you, my caseload has skyrocketed. I mean, we are inundated with cases because it's a hot topic. And it makes the job that much harder because we've got to weed through. A lot of them are just people, wanting to get on the bandwagon of reporting it. It's, now it's like the cool thing to do to talk about UFOs. So, we get a lot of stuff that, there's some very valid cases that need a very in-depth review. They're buried in some of the, I call fluff. So we need more investigators here in Virginia. I've got 4 right now, and we've been getting almost 100 cases a month.
Wow.
Which is, it's a lot. And this is it's a volunteer job. None of this is a paid position.
Right.
It's all volunteer, and I have a full-time job. So becoming a field investigator, I tell you, there's about 500 of us, and they're all over the world. They're not just here in the United States. We can use more, many, many more.
Interesting. Okay. So I guess we'll all wait to see what will be released with this next Department of Defense report. And we really appreciate you coming on. Maybe if we get some more things that we'd like to talk about, Michael, would you be good to come on again?
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe after the report gets released, we can read it and then get Mike to come on to comment about it.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
Great. Okay. Well, thanks very much, Mike.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
Where's Tyler at? We got something else going on.
Where is Tyler
today.
at? He's like in a darkened
he didn't like
Zoom.
hearing about this stuff. So today, I think today's the last day of the astrophotography contest, isn't it?
I believe it is.
So I asked Tyler to come on to talk about it. We probably should have gone to him first at the beginning. I didn't think about that.
Why don't you go ahead and cover your part, and I'll track down Tyler.
Well,
I did find out more.
Yeah, I didn't have anything else in particular. I am working on some new stuff. Basically, what my job this week is to get back on schedule with working on new product development. And yes, we do new product development a lot during the week. I've also been working on some updates to the firmware with Wes that will eventually release here. And what I want to ask people to do is keep up with the forum as much as you can, and share your experiences with the forum. It helps us all get better and gets the equipment better. I think we've got a good track record of keeping things up to date as we get suggestions and things from people. There he is. So I've been rambling on while you guys have been.
That's good for you. That's what you like to do.
If I have a specific thing to talk about, I can talk for an hour about it, but I didn't think about anything particular to talk about. That's why I was kind of rambling.
Well, I have some stuff to talk about.
I can find some topics.
We have some door prizes that we're going to be giving away at the Global Star Party.
That's
we'll
nice.
talk more about
the Global Star
after
Party.
You talk about after you talk about the.
Astrophotography contest.
That's right.
That is right. Guess what, folks? It is over. Closing time. Blah, blah, blah. I don't know the song. Before my time. It's before my time. Yeah, today was the official final day for the astrophotography contest for the smartphone. Now, just in case everybody's wanting to know, there were first, second, third place. My camera's over here now. First, second, third place winners. Third place would receive $25, an upgrade to their EA membership, and an 18x24 print. Second place was a $50 gift card for Explore Scientific, or with Explore Scientific, an upgrade to their EA membership, and a same 18x24 print. In first place is a $75 gift card with Explore Scientific, along with an 18x24 print and an upgrade for the EA membership, if it's applicable. We had a total of 56 entries. Now, I will go over these with tomorrow, and I can be back on the show tomorrow if Scott will let me, because I know we are on crunch time.
Yeah,
he might let me. It depends on if he lets me out of my cage. It just depends.
That's going to take a lot to get through all those images. Isn't
it? Yeah. For 56, it will. It'll take at least almost an hour.
So one way you can sort through. I've done this with certain things. Is if you pick up a random 2 samples, say which one's better, which one do I want to have? I think might be a winner. You put that one over here and put the other one in the other pile. Then you do it again. Then you do it again.
Folks, I might be calling Jerry and having him help me figure this out.
You kind of cycle that through, and you can get through, you can weed them down fairly quickly that way, and then you can start looking at them close.
True, but I want everybody to see everybody's picture.
Yeah.
I want to recognize everybody.
One of the things I'm going to ask our editorial team for Skies Up magazine to do is to publish every shot that was submitted.
Yeah.
And then we're going to have, if there's 56 submissions, we're going to have all 56 shots published. It'll be in a worldwide magazine.
That'd be nice. Yeah.
And
we want everybody to be recognized for their achievement.
Yeah, and we'll show the first, second, and third place winners. So
you got all the images. You got good details on your equipment, or this is just a cell phone. But did you?
This is just a
details
smartphone.
on? You didn't get any details on telescope if they took a picture with a telescope or anything.
Yes, I will have that information. I'd have to go through the Excel worksheet, see what they got, cross-reference.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll definitely take a minute.
I mean, that's just more information for our customers to understand what they were able to do with their equipment.
Exactly. But folks, that was the smartphone astrophotography contest that came to a close. I had to get with Scott and figure out what we're going to do next.
So that hasn't been decided.
We're going to find winners. That's what we're going to do next.
That's it. Winners.
Right.
Winners.
So when do you think the next one's going to be? Are we doing one a quarter or something? Once every 3 months or something? Is that what we're doing?
I think me and Scott decided when every magazine gets published.
Yeah, it'll be 6 times a year, kind of coinciding with the magazine.
Okay.
We want everybody who is submitting their work to get some exposure. I think having your stuff published is encouraging. So if it's not the top ranked, image of something, just kind of going through that process of having. Turning your work, having it peer reviewed, competing a little bit, and then to have it actually published. So I think that's a good process to.
That's how you get better. That's how you understand.
How you get better. That's right. You'll make yourself better. So
that's right.
Right. That's good. Well, Tyler, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
I did want to touch on the 50th Global Star Party, which is happening tonight. Okay, so we're going to be on at 8 o'clock. We have a long list of speakers that's going to be speaking with us. So when you see me publish, when we go on the air, which will start at about 7:45, we'll have kind of a countdown for getting seated to watch the program. You'll see the projected schedule. Now, sometimes we run a little faster, sometimes we run a little bit slower. We try to give everybody some time to speak, but because it's the 50th event, It's not the 50th anniversary, but the 50th event. We did want to make it special. So we have over $1,000 in door prizes, so these are not,
a lot.
it's not a t-shirt, and it's not a, it's not a smaller door prize. These are significant. One of them,
No, you get, that's like a
grand
normal star
prize
party.
is
That's
going
like
to
a normal
be
star party.
68-degree eyepiece kit. So we picked
Oh,
up
yeah.
a collection of 68-degree eyepieces and eyepiece case, and so that's going to be the grand prize. That is over $1,000 for that. Second door prize is going to be the Alpen Teton binoculars.
Oh,
Now these
those are
are
nice.
superior binoculars with an Abbey roof prism, ED glass. They're waterproof. Really extraordinary binoculars for people who are naturalists, birders, astronomers. Really great set of binoculars. And those who are looking to measure the weather, we're going to give away a 5-in-1 Explore Scientific weather station. We keep one here on the building. It's great. It hooks
We have
up.
one at the MSRO also.
Right. So we keep it connected to Weather Underground. And so it's nice because you can see the local weather right where your home is, and you would be taking part, and if you're on Weather Underground, you're taking part of a community of people who measure the weather locally. So it's pretty cool. So you definitely want to participate in this. The Astronomical League will be on with us. Carol Orge, who's the president of the Astronomical League, will be reading the questions. But these prizes that I'm showing you here today are for the 50th event. We have, David Levy's going to be with us, of course. Dave Eicher returns after being gone for a couple of events. He's coming back with a microscope, which is really cool. And he'll be looking at, I think, some of the gems and stuff that he had shown to us earlier. So David Eicher from Astronomy Magazine has a lot of different interests, so he wanted to dig into his gem collection, his crystals, these kinds of rocks. I imagine he has some meteorites as well.
He's got a lot of meteorites, I imagine.
Right, he has a nice collection, and so we'll be taking a more in-depth view with that microscope, which is a Bresser microscope, by the way. And then Stella Kafka will be on from the American Association of Variable Star Observers. She's the director there. We have the heavyweights coming on tonight of the Global Star Party. A lot of people have been on with us many times before. Some of them are newer, like Maxi Falares, but a gifted astrophotographer. We got Rodrigo Saleta, who's going to come on with us. He's been gone for a while. Rodrigo's studying to become a professional astronomer, so he may end up working up at CTIO or something like that eventually. But he loves astronomy, and I think he's a geologist by training. So he's wanting to go into professional science of astronomy, which is totally cool. But he's joining back up with us. Deepti Gautam is inviting one of her friends that's involved in the Nepal Astronomical Society to give a presentation with her. Libby and the Stars will be there, of course, as well. And and I'm not getting all of them because I think there was like 18 presenters or something that's coming on tonight. So I'm going to have to get some coffee.
That's a crazy number of people.
It's going to be a long one.
Yeah, that's like a full day seminars, and then observing on top of that.
Yeah. I also want to give a shout out to Don Sully and all the guys of the organizers of the Texas Star Party. They had, they loved our audience. Don was reporting back to me all the great comments from those of you who watch our shows. So I appreciate that you were tuning into the TSP. They had some amazing speakers. I think they did a great production job on it. I learned that I could broadcast 2 shows simultaneously. I didn't know I could do that. So we had their team broadcasting into our Facebook page, and then I had the Astronomical League live event that went down on Friday, and I was able to broadcast that back onto our pages as well. So it's kind of cool to see 2 different live broadcasts in the same
you're getting to be a professional
Facebook
broadcaster.
stream.
Yeah.
So.
You're like a general a broadcast company almost.
Yeah. So it's cool. It's cool, so, but, we got the technology. Amateur astronomers are well suited to use it. And so, let's press the pedal to the metal,
Take advantage of it. Yeah.
That's right. Aside from that, I think that's everything for today. I we always have more coming up, but my mind's right now is psyched on 50th Global Star Party. So hope you join us. When you do, please share it. These people all come in. Of course, it's all volunteer. And, it's an educational outreach activity. And the audience can really help us by sharing it and spreading it around as much as they can, because that helps us out with educational outreach. Anything else you'd like to add, Jerry?
No, I think we were kind of off topic a little bit today, but again, it was really on topic because we're dealing with the sky, and there's a lot of stuff that goes on in the sky that we don't realize.
That's true.
And if we
That's true.
observe a little harder, maybe we'll see some of these things.
I don't know. We'll see.
I guess that's what I'm interested in, is how astronomers, what are the astronomers' stories in this regard,
I do know astronomers. I've known professional astronomers that have claimed to have seen things, okay, which they considered to be extraterrestrial. One of them was a radio astronomer, professional radio astronomer. My parents, friends that have had experiences, but also, some pretty dyed-in-the-wool amateur astronomers that, I respect their experience in looking at the sky. And so they had some, they've had some experiences that they can't explain. I wish it would happen to me, so that I could
yeah, me too,
understand,
right.
So all these,
I couldn't imagine
all these
seeing
reports and stuff, it's not as prevalent as, like, well, of course you're going to experience something once in your life,
maybe.
I may go through my whole life and experience nothing like that. So
right.
I don't know.
I mean, it's something that would cause you to become really emotionally, agitated. That's the way I would describe it, right? You would really question yourself, what the heck is that? What the heck?
Mm-hmm.
That's the kind of feeling that it'd be kind of interesting to have or experience. To really not understand what you're looking at, and no matter how long you look at it, if it's available to see, that's the kind of thing. But some of this stuff is real flighty. It's there for 30 seconds and gone, which is really tough to.
Right.
To me, that you have to write that stuff off because it could be anything.
Well, there's also a psychological thing at play, or could be at play in some of the stuff too. I have not personal experience myself that I'm aware of, but I have had relatives that have had full-blown schizophrenia, where they see things, hear things, experience things, and they can't tell whether it's real or not. Okay. In fact, it's so convincing that they could pass a lie detector test. Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty scary when you think about it.
Right. And so I think I've mentioned this before, but guy who makes Stark Labs imaging software. He
Craig Stark, the PhD too, or PhD.
Yeah, PhD too. Yeah. Right. I think that's what it is. Yeah. He and I were observing once down in Julian, California. This goes back years ago. He's a brain scientist at UCI, and so my question to him was, what are the odds that a perfectly mentally healthy person, okay, just once, one time in their life, has a full-blown schizophrenic episode and sees something, okay? Now, it could be something very benign, like seeing somebody walk across the street, or, could it be, a flying saucer comes down and aliens walk out? I said, what are the odds that that could happen to someone? And he said, that's very possible, that you could have something go on in your brain that just once you have it, it's gone, you never have it again, but you can't tell the difference.
Yeah, that's really odd. That's really strange.
Right.
That's what people talk about the Matrix.
So,
being more computer generated.
There's all kinds of things we can throw out there, that a skeptic can throw out there to say, well, what about this? What about that? There was one of the other things that I saw somewhere in response to the Navy videos is that, what about a projected hologram? Well, okay, why would anybody project a hologram into airspace? And you and I talked about it earlier, Jerry, and
yeah.
Well, the reason why you might do that is distraction,
right,
to confuse your enemy, right?
It's like the opposite of camouflage.
It's moving strange, erratically, it's kind of, all of us with green lasers out there, playing with green lasers on the sky, boy, you can make a green laser fly around the sky like crazy, right?
Yeah, it's opposite of camouflage. You're trying to distract the your adversary or
right.
somebody.
Is it that? We don't know. And you'll notice Mike did not come out and say, "Oh yeah, those Scott, the guys in the Navy were seeing flying saucers from another planet." So he's right. And that's one of the things I have noticed. We have I might have mentioned it earlier, but we have a gentleman who comes in from the MUFON organization in Arkansas. And I've asked him about investigations, and he says, we look at everything, and he said so much of it we're able to debunk pretty quickly. So they're trying to ferret out stuff that they can't explain away. And it's not like they start off from the angle of, well, yeah, of course there's UFOs out there and there's aliens and stuff, and we're going to weed it out until we find it. They start off with saying, probably what you saw was something else, right. and they work it down like that. So, which Mike Klosterman was kind of confirming for me as well. So anyhow, there's so much about the universe we don't know, and right. The adventure is that we keep looking up to explore it. So
that's right.
Right.
Yeah.
So anyway, and I really hope that you guys come on. I will tell you that we will have an after party, but it's going to be late. Okay. I'm expecting by the time we get through all the regular speakers and all the rest of it, maybe around 11 p.m. Central, which is, midnight on the East Coast. If you're on the West Coast, it's a little bit easier. You can join us, later into the night. But anyhow, that's it for right now. And my friend Egon Reich, he says, "Great show, Scott. I guess you have to be probed to feel it's not a hologram."
Man.
Oh man. All right, Egon.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll be back on Thursday for more OpenGOTO Community.
Yeah, let us know if you like programs like this or if you don't like them at all. That'd be some good feedback for us.
Yeah, it would. Right? Very cool. All right. We'll see you guys later tonight, and keep looking up.
you.